it's Scott Vogel on sex addiction, and today I'm going to talk to you about what is anonymous sex addiction. The word anonymous is often taken to mean completely unknown or without identity. When we're speaking about sex addiction, however, the word carries a lot of different meanings and connotations. When a sex addict engages in anonymous sex, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not familiar or unfamiliar with their partner. For the purposes of this conversation, anonymous sex is what can commonly be referred to as hooking up or one night stands. People meet for a sexual encounter, and once the act is complete, they part ways, possibly never to see each other again outside of maybe a casual social situation. But extreme forms of anonymous sex can fit the common definition of the word quite accurately. There are clubs and other places that facilitate strangers meeting for sex. Names are not exchanged, and in some cases, the people don't even see each other. The sex act being completed through a curtain or a hole in the wall or masks. These are called glory holes. They're often found in adult video arcades, theaters, or some restrooms or rest stops. The activity doesn't need to involve physical contact. The people involved can watch each other perform sex acts, and one might even be a paid sex worker. The online video cams that are available are definitely anonymous. Online chat rooms are anonymous. An addict involved in this sort of behavior, like any other sex addict, is acting compulsively and is most likely doing it to avoid negative emotions. Some behaviors might be illegal. Some are risks to health or financial drain. Some of them are a drain on the spiritual and emotional part of the sex addict, and they keep doing it because it's their sex addiction. It's the level of intimacy that defines where addiction to anonymous sex differs from other sex addictions. Sex addiction is often an emotionally solo activity. With pornography and masturbation, those are solo, done by the sex addicts themselves. Phone sex and cyber sex are a heightened level of social involvement because it involves usually another person. Physical contact does not have to occur in the phone sex and cyber sex. Anonymous sex, as we've described, offers some physical contact, but it lowers the social components to the bare minimum. So it's just about the sex. It's got nothing to do with any type of love or emotion or intimacy. It's all about the physical contact of the sex. Now, this type of behavior appeals to sex addicts for a few reasons. One, they may lack the social skills to become involved with other people and in relationships. They might be ashamed of themselves in some way, so they seek out this anonymous sex. They could be ashamed of their bodies, their personalities, and have low self-confidence. You see, the sex addict seeks physical sexual contact, but not social contact. It may also be a method of keeping their identity secure should their behavior have public or familial ramifications. Anonymous sex includes brief sexual encounters where there's little to no emotional connection. These encounters can range from a few minutes in a private area, or they can be more stereotypical of the one night stand scenario. It's also not uncommon for these relationships to last maybe, one, two, or a few days. Anything beyond a a day or two is not considered anonymous sex addiction. The distinctive factor in sex addiction here remains that the relationship is about physical sex with no other type of connection apparent. So it's just about the physical sex, and that's it. As quick and anonymous as possible. Now, anonymous sex addiction can involve or lead to other forms of sex addiction. A person may enjoy seduction, the seduction addiction, where it's all about the conquest, the chase to get somebody to the sexual portion of the relationship. And they can also be involved in internet addictions, where they're anonymous and they can hook up with people without ever having to know who they are. That's not a physical part, the internet addiction, but it's still an anonymous addiction. And they use the internet also to arrange sexual encounters, keeping the knowledge of the other person's identity to a minimum. They create fake names, fake identities, so that when they meet, they're not real people meeting, or so they think. What it is avoiding the emotional connection. That's what the sex addict is doing. They're trying to avoid that emotional connection, and over time, the anonymous sex addict stunts their ability to form emotional bonds because they focus on just the sex and not the person at all. So in discussing anonymous sex addiction, anonymous sex can simply be somebody hooking up for the purpose of hooking up, a one-night stand. So they complete the sex act without ever becoming involved with their partner. It's an emotionally solo activity where it's either pornography or masturbation, that it doesn't involve a level of social interaction, like phone sex and cyber sex, where it's about being anonymous and not letting anyone know who you are. And it's so appealing to sex addicts because they may lack the social skills or they're ashamed of themselves in some way. So it's very, very enticing for them. And it includes these brief sexual encounters, whether they be a few moments, a few hours, or a day or two. That's what makes up anonymous sex addiction. It also involves or leads to other sex addictions, to seduction addiction, to pornography addiction, to masturbation addiction, and to other addictions. Could be drugs, it could be alcohol, to enhance the emotional parts of their lives that they're missing. Please visit our YouTube channel on sex addiction, where you'll find more videos on sex addiction and recovery from sex addiction. You can go to our blog on sexaddiction.com for a free video explaining what sex addiction is, the 7 symptoms of sex addiction, the 4 faulty core beliefs set up by the 4 traumas of sex addiction, and the solution in recovery from sex addiction, the 7 paths to success. This is Scott Vogel on sex addiction.